When you look at successful leaders and managers, one quality that they all seem to possess is a high level of self-awareness. Today, we're going to explore how do you increase your self-awareness in 3 easy ways. Self-awareness can take a little bit of time, but today we're going to explore 3 practical ways that you can easily grow it. Stay tuned because I'm also going to offer you a free PDF on one of those exercises that will perfectly lay it out and help you to use it in your daily life. The first way to increase your self-awareness is with a technique called the body scan. Now, the body is incredibly important because the body gives us signals and messages even before we become cognitively aware of them, of how we are feeling, if we've been triggered, etc. And so therefore, building in the body scan, which is a way of really trying to review what the body is feeling in the moment, can be really helpful in building up our self-awareness. Now, I'd like to provide you with a free PDF on how to perform a body scan. But in this moment, I'd just like to take a few moments and help you imagine what a body scan is like. So wherever you are, perhaps not if you're driving and listening, but perhaps if you're at home, put your feet on the ground and ground your feet. Now, grounding your feet are incredibly important because what we want to try and do is to feel the physicality of our body. And so we can begin to feel some of the physicality of our feet on the ground. And then begin to breathe in and to breathe out. And maybe take a few moments to take 2 or 3 deep breaths in and out and in and out. We're going to scan each part of the body, and that's where the name comes from, the body scan. And it helps us just become aware how that part of our body is feeling in the moment. And so you begin from your head or from your toe. And so maybe just reflect on your feet and then come up to your ankles and your legs. And just notice, is there any moments of tension? Is there anything there to become aware of? And then as you move from your legs into your stomach, to become aware of how you're feeling in your stomach. Again, is there any tension or strain? And then we come up to our lungs, and just to notice our lungs, our heart, how we're breathing, how our heart is beating. And then we go to our shoulders. Our shoulders are incredibly important because they are a place where we hold lots of tension. And we can feel lots of tension and anxiety going on in our shoulders. Work down your arms into your hands. Just become aware of our hands and any tension that may be in our hands. And then finally up through our neck. Again, our neck and our jaw can be places where we hold a lot of tension. And our mouth. And then our nose and our eyes. Now, what I've done there in 2 minutes is something that can be done for 5 minutes, 10 minutes. In the exercise, which I'll invite you to download at the end of this video, it goes through a complete breakdown of step by step of how you can do a body scan. One of the great things we know is that people who actually introduce this practice at night before going to bed, on average are able to sleep a lot better because they're really becoming more in touch with their bodies. It's also really helpful to do this maybe for 1 minute, for 2 minutes before a meeting or before something important that's going on, because then it can really help us become more aware of how we're showing up and any tension that we might have in our body. So there's the first practice, which can clearly help us become more self-aware. It's the body scan. The second way that we can increase our self-awareness is by becoming more aware of our emotional triggers. As human beings, we are wondrously made, and we are made to survive. And one of our survival mechanisms is that the body is able to detect threat. And threat comes to us in many different ways, but more often than not, it is triggered, and that trigger causes an emotional reaction. Now, sometimes if our life is under threat, that is something that is wonderful, and it's why I'm here today. It's why you're able to watch, because we went into an automatic response. We were triggered for a threat and we responded. However, the brain does not do a great job about differentiating between what's a genuine threat and what's something passing that we really don't need to worry about. Now, how do we recognize the difference? By understanding our trigger print. Now, that's a word that I created. We know that we all have fingerprints. Our fingerprints are unique. Everyone has their own, and so are trigger prints. Everyone's trigger print is unique. You see, what triggers me is not going to trigger another person. You even think that some triggers are universal, like spiders or snakes, and yet there are some people who love spiders, who love snakes, and who are not triggered by them. And so part of growing in self-awareness is realizing patterns in our life. What triggers us? What gets us going? In the workplace, whoa, there are so many different triggers. The words budget cuts, wow, they can trigger people. How about someone talking over you at a meeting? How about someone speaking negatively about you? How about someone being sarcastic to you? All of these can be triggers for us, and that we react emotionally. And why do we want to understand our triggers? Because if we understand what's triggering us, we also have the possibility of choosing a more thoughtful response, a response that is more helpful in the situation. So I was working with a client last year who, when a person talked over them, they were triggered and they shut down. Now, that wasn't a helpful trigger, because really what was needed in that situation was for them to speak up and for them to get their voice heard. And so when they looked at their trigger print, when they looked at this pattern in their lives, they were able to initiate different changes in behavior that then when they realized that they were shutting down, they were able to interrupt that pattern and to speak up. That's the value of learning what our triggers are, because they help us be more deliberate in the choices that we want to make. The third way to grow your self-awareness is by keeping an emotional journal. Now, what is an emotional journal? Well, an emotional journal is a space. You can do this in your iPad, you can do it with paper, you can do it in a formal journal. It doesn't really matter. But really at the core of what it is taking notes of anything that's significant emotionally that happens during the day. This is the space where you're going to begin to recognize some patterns in your life. You're going to be able to uncover some of the triggers perhaps that have happened to you, and you're going to also recognize some patterns within those triggers that keep coming up time and time again. You're going to recognize about how different people perhaps make you feel in different ways, or perhaps different meetings may give you different emotions as well. Now, it doesn't necessarily have to be long and arduous entries every day. It can just be a few little cliff notes of summaries of things that have happened. But what I know is this, is that people who tend to grow well in their self-awareness are people that have begun to document and explore some of the emotions in their life. So perhaps maybe this is an opportunity for you to begin keeping an emotional journey and to look at some of the emotions that you go through day after day. Body scan triggers emotional journal. 3 ways that we can grow our self-awareness. Now, as promised, please find the link below to the PDF on the body scan. Press it and download it, and it will give you some great ways to introduce the body scan into your life. Also, if you've enjoyed this video, I invite you to subscribe to this channel, to press the bell to be reminded of new videos. Each week, I come out with something new in the area of leadership and also emotional intelligence. If there's a topic or an area that you would like me to explore in a future episode, please make some comments below, and I will be happy to integrate it into one of my next videos. Finally, if you would like to continue watching something connected to this video, why not click on the one next to me here, which explores the inner critic and how the inner critic can get in the way of our progress.